Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. Thank you for watching.
So we share the song this evening because we're in this practice of studying the teachings of Jack Kornfield and his book, The Wise Heart, which is a book that gives the main teachings of Buddhist psychology. And the purpose of this practice is to support us in our practicing unity principles in our lives by adding in this kindred teaching that supports us in a deeper knowing of consciousness in the way that it's outlined. And so it is to come back home to know the truth of who we are by being fully in the presence, which is what we were practicing in our meditation tonight. So we had a major event on this planet this Sunday, a convergence of consciousness of people all over the country, perhaps all around the world. Anyone know what I'm talking about? The Super Bowl, right? Right? Yes, it's like everyone knew the Super Bowl was happening for the most part. I even knew it was happening. I don't usually watch football. So we had it on, which is almost crazy. But yes, it was a great excuse to buy pizza and have chips and salsa. And we love the commercials and the halftime show. And it was enjoyable, but we weren't paying too much attention to the game. And my daughter's not used to having football on. She's 7. She's just having her shows on. So she just turned it off at one point. So what are you doing? It's Super Bowl. To her, that means nothing. She's like, I don't want to watch this, and this is boring. She's like, it's boring. It's like, how? This is the least boring thing. It's so active. There's so much happening, but to her it was boring. So it's interesting to notice if you watch, how many people watch the game at all or turn it on at all? Anybody here or turn it on at all? Yeah, a few people, everybody who watched it had their own state of consciousness, right, during the game. So if you're an Eagles fan or a Chiefs fan, you were either intensely focused, exhilarated, anguished, on the edge of your seat. Perhaps you were just relaxed, chilling with your friends. Or if you were the referee, you're going to perceive the game very differently than if you're a player or a coach. Or maybe I heard some people around here who called it the superb owl. They really were in a different place as far as what we were going to expect on Sunday. It's funny. We're all watching the same game, and you can apply this to anything, right? We're all watching the same game. However, our awareness of the game is colored by our thoughts, emotions, and expectations. So we're all having a different experience depending on our state of mind, our consciousness, what we're bringing to that experience, what you're bringing here tonight. Each one of you is having your own internal experience, and it's going to color what you're hearing in the talk. It's going to color how you experience the music and the ringing of the bowl, all the aspects of the service and this space. The Buddha said our consciousness is colored by the states that visit it. So we have visitors, right, in our consciousness, feelings that show up, that get triggered. And it's important for us to know that whatever is showing up has a relationship with our past. It's showing up in response to how our thoughts have been conditioned by our path. We have grooves, you could say, in our consciousness that have been well worn by our experience and our expectations and how we're preparing ourselves to respond. Have you ever looked at your consciousness and named the states of mind that fill it throughout the day, just to go through and notice, wow, I'm a lot more frustrated than I really thought. I thought I was a pretty chill person, but wow, I'm a little edgy. Or maybe you find you're more peaceful than you thought. But you may be surprised at what you discover. Frightened, bored, relaxed, confused, resentful, calm, frustrated, so on. These are all mind states, and they're all natural, really, for all of us to have different mind states. That's how our minds operate. They don't stay in the same state all the time. Jack Kornfield's teacher, Ajahn Chah, said, "Do you believe your mind states? Are you trapped by them? You'll suffer for sure." So that's the thing. Can you have thoughts and not believe them? What do you mean not believe them? They're my thoughts. They're my thoughts, right? They're there because they're my belief system. So imagine walking through life and not buying into the story that your mind is telling you and just observing. It's a different experience. Buddhist psychology teaches us that there is suffering in life and there's also an end to suffering. So that suffering that you get when you're trapped in your thoughts, you ever have a breakup where you can't stop thinking about it, right? Or a death in your family where you're overcome with grief. There's different mind states that we can hold that can be consuming, right? Or even, anticipation of something joyful. There's different mind states that could possibly make us suffer depending on how we are with them. But the end of suffering doesn't come the way we in Western culture expect it to come. The way that we expect the end of suffering to come, we just leave. So we just think in Western culture, the way to achieve happiness is to change our external environment. Well, I'll move into a new house, I'll get a new car, I'll get a new boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, new job. But that strategy doesn't actually work. Why? Because we're not living from the outside in, we're living from within out. So the same person that showed up in the old job is going to be the same person that shows up in the new job that has the same issues with everybody, right? That's just going to continue to go with you in whatever changes you make until you make that shift within yourself, right? Right? What I'm talking about? Okay. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about consciousness being either a particle or wave. Remember that science is telling us that consciousness can show up either in the form of a wave or a particle. And it's just flowing like a wave until that consciousness is conditioned by our mental state. When it's colored, this talk is called the colorings of consciousness. When it's colored or conditioned, it begins to act like a particle, arising and passing, taking on whatever qualities that happen to arise with it. That's what's happening in our consciousness. The fourth principle of Buddhist psychology says, recognize the mental states that fill consciousness and shift from unhealthy ones to healthy ones. This is good, right? We'll also teach that in Unity, that it is helpful for us to identify what levels of consciousness we are expressing or experiencing so that we can shift to healthy ones rather than unconsciously going through the same kind of strategies, experiences of our mind that are responding to our life, which can be unhealthy. So to understand the colorings of our consciousness, Buddhist psychology places them in a three-part system. That all of our impressions that we receive from outside come in through what? Our senses, right? Our five, well, they say there's 6 senses. So we know the 5, right? Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, body sensations. And they said the mind is actually the 6th sense door because it's through the mind that we receive thoughts and feelings. Aren't thoughts and feelings more like you're receiving them? And you could make them happen, but more often we're kind of receiving them in the mind. They're happening of their own accord. in response to life as things unfold. There's also the consciousness that is receiving each sense experience, which they call eye consciousness, ear consciousness, tongue, nose, body, mind consciousness. That is the consciousness that's receiving. So there's the sense that's happening, and then there's a consciousness that's receiving that sense and interpreting it, right? So the more that you practice mindfulness, like we were doing in our meditation tonight, you'll see that within a few minutes of your observing your own inner experience, there are thousands of little moments of sound and ear consciousness, different vibrations that are happening, sight and eye consciousness, things that you're taking in, right? Taste and tongue consciousness, all these different things happening all at once that we call our experience. They're all little pieces of consciousness. Like, have you ever seen like an impressionist painting where it's all these different dots of color, but it comes together and it makes one picture? Your eye interprets it as one picture, but what it is really is all these little tiny dots. And it's a really cool art form because of that, because of how the mind uses that experience to interpret it. So all of these little moments are making up our experience of the Super Bowl or the Superb Album or Wednesday Night Satsang. That's all little dots of experience, light, color, feeling, the temperature, and all that kind of thing that all blends together, which we call one experience. There's really so many little tiny ones. So I just invite you now to just take your attention away from me and just look at something else in the room. Or if you're watching online, just look away, just look somewhere else. Notice something else that you see in the space. So notice that once you start looking at something else, the contents of the thought of my talk just recede away. And now you're taking in a different sight. Now you're feeling different energy. Your attention is somewhere else. So now bring your attention back to me. And just notice that, how quickly that shifts. The mind shifts, right? The noticing your attention shifts. Our sense impressions and our sense consciousnesses are the first two steps in how we construct our world. So if we go back to the Super Bowl, and this is really unusual for me to use football as a metaphor here, but I'll go with it. So if you bet on the Eagles, your state of consciousness is probably what? Probably pretty low, right? Probably angry, frustrated. You might have thrown your TV on the floor. I saw some memes online of people destroying TVs. If you bet on the Chiefs, your state of consciousness is probably what? Thrilled, awesome, and like you've connected with that. Like I won. You just feel like we've all won because it was your team, right? So this is the sense experience that is colored by the many states of mind. Same experience we're all going through, depending on your state of consciousness, how you're going to experience. So these states of mind are the third aspect of human experience. Jack Kornfield says, with every sense impression and the consciousness that receives it, there arise qualities of mind such as worry, pride, and excitement. So qualities of mind that arise from our experience of the senses and how we've taken it in. And our happiness is based on these mental qualities and what they bring to each experience. So Buddhist psychology teaches us that when we bring mindfulness to observe these mind states, just regular ordinary mind states we're observing, we can learn to release those that bring us sorrow and to foster those that create joy. We can really have a locus of control of our consciousness where we're beginning to make change and not just kind of be victim to whatever is showing up. The unhealthy mind states have three roots: grasping, aversion, and delusion. So from these roots arise envy, rigidity, anxiety, dullness, shamelessness, self-centeredness, doubt, agitation, misperception. Okay, we all experience all of these at times. And the stronger the states are, the more we suffer, right? More we suffer. And then when they're really, really extreme comes war and violence, racism, exploitation, and injustice. Those are the fruits of really being in an intense state of these unhealthy mind states. But healthy mind states, which we're wanting to cultivate, right, are love, generosity, and mindfulness. So from these arise clarity, composure, joy, insight, adaptability, confidence, discretion, and balance. And so the good news is that when healthy factors are present, unhealthy ones are not. You know, you've probably heard you can't hold a positive thought and a negative thought at the same time, that the positive thought actually is stronger. It's much stronger. It's 10 times stronger than the negative thought. When we foster healthy mind states, the unhealthy ones disappear. And so this is good news for us. The Dhammapada says it this way: speak or act with a deluded mind and sorrow will follow you, as the wheel follows the ox who draws the cart. Speak or act with a clear mind and happiness will follow you as closely as your shadow, unshakable. Unshakable. Speak or act with a clear mind and happiness will follow you. Jack Kornfield tells a story. This is really funny, and I think I'll say it very quietly so no one in Houston catches wind of this. That there's an article in a newspaper in San Francisco that told of a nearby town called Pleasanton, where they were reporting a lot of angry drivers in this town, and the police were having trouble with people speeding along the main highway. And they asked the traffic engineers to create signals so that they could capture the speed of a car when it was 350 feet from the intersection. And drivers who were habitually speeding were finding that they kept hitting red lights. They had set up the system so that if you're speeding, that you would keep catching red lights. It's pretty amazing. It's a real story. And there were a lot of mad drivers, as you can imagine, very frustrated drivers, and the press called it instant karma. Well, yeah, we can hope they don't figure that one out in Houston for us, but you can imagine that if we practice mindfulness, we would not have the need for the Department of Transportation to step in and let us know you're being too dangerous in the world. We can learn to be aware of our mental states without getting caught up in them and possibly putting other people in danger. Last night we were driving home and I put my signal on to change lanes, and a car, instead of letting me in, sped up past me, and then I saw that same car. There were cars that were trying to get off from 59 onto 610 they were stopped. And he rear-ended a car, and then the car he rear-ended the next car. Just because he didn't want to let me in the lane. I was very grateful I did not get in that accident. I was praying a lot of prayers of gratitude for that, but just to witness that is just really concerning, that you wonder what kind of mind state felt that was the right thing to do in that moment without regard of what was in front of him or her. So just start with noticing, is your mind tense or relaxed? Does it contain hatred or love? Is it worried or composed? And of course those things change, but just to notice those basic mind states. And we want to really notice healthy mind states as they show up, because that's when we're the most free and open. And love and generosity and flexibility and ease are really natural to us when we're in that kind of healthy mind state. And that healthy mind state is going to tune us in with the very light of God that we are, that I was singing about our original goodness, what Buddhism calls a Buddha nature, and Unity we call it our Christ nature, or our divine nature. To close, I want to share with you what Jack Kornfield's teacher taught, that when you have wisdom, contact with experience is like standing at the bottom of ripe mango trees. We get to choose the good or the rotten mangoes. And it's all to your profit, because you know which mangoes are going to make you sick and which ones are healthy. Because now you know your mind states. You spent time with your consciousness, with yourself, observing, and you can recognize healthy mind states and choose that and foster that. So when we practice mindfulness, which is a healthy state, just mindfulness, just if you notice you're in an unhealthy state, what are my feet doing? What are my hands doing? Being present to the breath, just taking some simple steps to reconnect with your present moment experience is going to help to shift you to a healthy state. And then we discover we have the power to choose a healthy response to whatever is arising in our experience. So whether you have peace or you go to war, whether you're imprisoned or set free, that is your choice. And with mindfulness, we can learn to let go and really allow our light to shine. Namaste. Invite up Reverend Sheila and Stacy Collins, our soon-to-be Reverend. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about our topic tonight and how you work with your own mind states.
I'm very much into mindfulness. I have been for a long time, and I love it. It has helped me so much during this period, these last couple of years. There were times when I could just feel everything was going down to this low level of energy. It was so much negative and rage and pain and suffering and so forth. And having been a person who practiced mindfulness in order to keep from going into that, and trying to stay on an upwardly progressive movement when there was a rage in the air, when people were very angry, when people were very sad, I learned how to lift my energy up by using my heart path. And so it lately, I've had to really focus on staying in my heart, because I could actually feel myself going down with what I was sensing in the air, with people in pain, people angry, people. And I had to really work to stay upward. And there were times I went down, but I did not stay there because I've been doing it for so long. I was so glad to hear you talking about that tonight, because it's been the thing that has kept me from being on the floor, sobbing and, or covering up my head in the bed and staying there for days and so forth and so on, because that's what I was feeling in the energy. The energy was very heavy, very weighty. And I'm just really delighted to hear your talk, because it was an affirmation for me.
Yes.
And what I heard from your talk was, good job, Sheila.
Yes, yes. I think that a lot of people who find their way to unity are highly sensitive people or empathic people, and it is a spiritual practice to discern, is that my feeling? Is that my mind state? Or am I picking up from my environment, from the people I'm around? Sometimes you walk in a room and you feel something, you go, ooh, what's that? What? Somebody just getting in an argument here, and you're sensing what's happening, and that's when we learn how to take care of ourselves and shift that energy. Definitely. because that impacts us as well.
Thank you for this talk tonight.
Thank you. I think this is great material, and I know we're getting into psychology, so it can maybe feel heady, but I think it can be really easily applied.
I appreciated the reminder too that sometimes our tendency, if we're finding ourselves in a place of being frustrated or unhappy, well, then let's change my external circumstances. It must be, I need a new job, I need a new partner, whatever it is. It's something out here. And I remember a time, this was several years ago, and it was one of those times was maybe overdue for a vacation because I started being a little resentful and snippy and, the kids don't appreciate me, complaining about everything. What we need is a vacation. And so we went to Alaska, and it was beautiful, and we had an RV. Well, what do you know? The same things the kids were making me mad about at home, they were annoying me in the RV. But funnily enough, I had brought a book with me, and one day I'd sit them all out, and I opened the book, and the book was John Kabat-Zinn, and it was, "Wherever you go, there you are."
Yes.
Oh, this is why I cannot escape myself. I thought the vistas of Alaska, the fresh air, the, easy pace would make me happy, would bring me the peace. That's what was going to bring me peace. But it was actually, I could give myself that gift before going anywhere. And so that is a very liberating thought to realize.
Yes.
And that we have control over that, and the more we notice it, the more we can free ourselves of those.
Yeah, definitely. My spiritual director told me, he has reminded me of this more than once, that you always want to be going to something rather than going away from something, because if you're leaving and to get away from something, you'll find it in the next place. It's a relocation solution. You think that's going to be the solution, but like you said, wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
One of the things I've learned to do over the years is that if we breathe, if we're feeling that and being pulled down and pulled into that pain, breathe in and out through the heart. Use this as your pathway, and I'm telling you, it doesn't take long. You may be like this, and in no time at all, it's like breathe through the heart. It's called heart breathing, and it is so helpful. That's what has helped me through this. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Within you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.